There's no doubting, French onion soup is a pretty classical dish with a pretty classical recipe. And most people would say, well, if it's not broke, there's no need to fix it. My biggest issue with making it in the traditional way is, after chopping up a whole bunch of onions, no matter how big your pot, it's pretty much impossible to get them caramelized the way that I want. My method gives this classic soup a wonderful charred, roasted caramelization with the onions and a serious depth of flavour. Let's get into it.
Enchanté.
Okay, let's jump straight into the video. I've got these really amazing Spanish onions. You can see they're absolutely massive and they're as cheap as chips. It's not always about using the most expensive stuff, it's great using quite humble ingredients as well. I now need to get these chopped up, and I do this by chopping through the top and bottom and then in half. This root here I don't really need in my soup, so I've decided to cut this out. Then I simply cut horizontally to create some lovely onion slithers, which are going to give my soup some wonderful character. I'm not going to bore you with chopping through them all, so I'm going to fast forward a bit so you can see they're all really nicely chopped. Same size, ready to go into the pan. At this stage, every recipe I've seen calls for all these onions to be chucked in a pot. Number one, what happens when your pot can't hold all of the onions? And number two, most importantly, how can that relatively small surface area in your pot properly caramelize all of your onions fully? This is why I chuck half of them in a large roasting tray, season them up and add a pinch of sugar as well. This will really help aid the caramelization. I'll get these in the oven now so they can start caramelizing. Whilst that's happening, I'm going to get cracking with my stock. If you have time, you can make your own beef stock, but if you don't, I'm going to show you how you can easily elevate a stock cube version 1. First up, I've got my stock cube. Then I'll put in a whole kettle of boiling water, add some chunky carrots, bay leaves, rosemary, cloves and some peppercorns. Give that a nice little stir and reduce. Now moving on to the other half of my onions, I'm going to put in a good hunk of butter and melt this down, touch of olive oil. The other half of my onions go in, and now it's just a matter of stirring these onions continuously. I'm going to treat them exactly in the same way as the oven roasted ones, apart from I'm going to add in a couple cloves of garlic into the mix. This way I have a fighting chance of caramelizing these onions, so be breaking them down into 2 batches is the logical thing to do. You can see after 30 minutes on a medium-high heat, they've picked up this wonderful colour and they smell incredible. You've now got some charred edges here and some texture, which is great. I'm going to add these to the roasted onions to my pot. To give it that French feel, a really good glug of French wine goes in.
Enchanté.
And this beef stock that I've worked on. The liquid element of this dish now needs to work its magic and hydrate the onions, so I turn my heat down and let this simmer gently for around an hour. Around 10 minutes or so before time's up, I can add in a couple tablespoons of brandy and adjust my seasoning. All that's left to do now is ladle some into a heat-proof bowl. And I've got this stone-baked bread, which I'm going to slice up and grill. Rub a garlic clove on both sides. Then this is ready to place on top of the soup. And I've got this amazing Gruyere cheese from Switzerland. This is amazingly nutty and just makes this dish so comforting. Whack this under a hot grill and serve immediately. There you have it, French onion soup, done my way, which allows a greater contrast and texture that is seriously good depth of flavour. If you've got something out of this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you lovely people later.